I come to you today from my yoga mat. I just finished teaching a yoga class, and there's a topic that's just so alive in me that I wanted to come straight here and share words around it. This idea that has to do with making impossible decisions, making decisions that don't have clear answers. I I found my way to yoga years ago because I was really deep in this space for a lot of different reasons. One, I was working on building up my health coaching platform, and there were so many loud voices in this space. There were people digging deep and deep and deeper into the science, just as I was trying to find answers, calling upon our human minds to dig and dig and dig into the data to come up with clear answers for what is really best for people to be eating and how it's best for people to be exercising and all of that. And I was also finding myself in other spaces in my life where, I'm calling upon everything I had been taught, calling upon all the words that I'd been given my whole life about how, as human beings, we're so smart, our brains are so magnificent, and really working off this understanding that, I can solve any problem if I just put enough effort and power behind my mind. And what I learned in this space was that this really wasn't a great method to bring me into the spaces that I really wanted to be in. It wasn't doing what I needed to solve the problems that needed to be solved, to bring forth the answers that I was seeking. So in this space the of this deep questioning, like, how is it that we actually make the best decisions possible? How is it that we find clarity on solutions when there's so many different factors at play and they're not pointing towards a clear answer? So I bring you this. I bring you this being at a fun time where, I've started to head back into the mountains. Right now, it's the end of June, moving into July, and it's the perfect time to be in the mountains, to be playing this game, my favorite game, that is putting myself in spaces where I have to make these important decisions, knowing that it's a game that I walk into of my own free will. I'm choosing to be in this space. Just like one may choose to show up in a yoga class, which again is why, really what led me to the yoga mat, not because I wanted to spend most of my time in a room on a mat, moving through a series of poses. I know that sort of yoga speaks to so many people, and it can be a beautiful space. As for myself, my own truth and reality was and continues to be that finding myself in these spaces out in the mountains, setting goals, bringing in desires and ideas things that I wanted to achieve, being in this space, showing up and learning the real game, right? And there's so many different parts to the game. That is how we make decisions to get to where we want to go. How do we make decisions to find ourselves on a peak or find ourselves in a pose, be in spaces that where we're standing right here, right now, it maybe doesn't quite seem feasible. But as we learn to take steps with this discernment, with this ability to make skillful choices, we find that step by step, we're able to get to these spaces. So as I'm finding myself out in the mountain and starting to bring in different yogic texts that had found their way to me, really starting to realize the draw of yoga, the draw of this ancient, ancient philosophy filled with countless individuals who have been drawn to the same space as myself. Having a system and a modern practice full of asana, so movement, bringing in the breath, pranayama, having these different, very clear, very tangible practices that we can call upon as we're going through our day to really embody these principles. So that's truly, truly what led me to this space. While many, many people come to yoga because they want, they're drawn to a yoga class, a space where they can consistently show up on the mat to maybe improve their body in some way. It's a beautiful space. But again, speaking the truth to the fact that that's always been a challenging path for me. As for my own self, I love more than anything learning these skills, being in this practice, out in nature, out running through a forest or out climbing up a mountain. And I love being able to bring it here to the mat, a space where we can more simply be in this space, be cultivating this practice. And that's really, really what I have on the table right now, my offerings, a yoga class that I have set up to be so simple. We can meet perhaps a couple times a month live in practice, and I can offer you on-demand practices that you can step into on your own time. And also, can I continue to feed you simple practices, guided meditations, practices to call upon when you're out doing whatever it is that lights you up in life. Maybe it is a walk through the forest where you can feel into your feet, really ground into the earth and call upon your breath and breathe in and out with the trees that are surrounding you. Then come into a practice, an hour-long yoga practice where we can move and breathe together as we explore different movement patterns in our bodies and, yes, stretch and strengthen a little bit, but more importantly, be in a space where, and we're learning to make these choices. Is it really a smart decision for me to hold this pose for another 5 breaths? The teacher's cueing it, but is it actually a right decision for me? Is it a right decision to try that handstand? Or, maybe listening into my own body, I recognize that, oh yes, I fell the other day and my wrist is a little funky. So can I make the choice to not do the handstand, even though everyone else in the class is doing it? Knowing what is right, knowing what is most true for each of us in each moment. Circling back to this space I was in when I found my way to yoga. Again, this health coaching space, right? A space where, and I found it to be just a fantastic, fantastic space to be in my head, to call upon my skills as a scientist and engineer, and to apply myself. So I dove deep down all the rabbit holes that I could find to find the solutions I was seeking. What are the best foods to be eating? What are the best exercises to be doing to optimize the health of my body? And recognizing that questions like that don't get answered. They don't get answered by only calling upon our minds. They don't get answered for a very clear reason, that they're far too complex, right? Each of us individual human beings, we're all a little bit different. Plus, who I am today is going to look different than who I am next week. So who's to say that the solution I find that works for me right now is going to work for you, is going to work for me in a month from now? And who's to say that an optimal solution exists at all? These are the type of places that I found myself in, moving from this scientist and engineering space into a health coaching space, and having it all blow up, having this whole model that we can call upon the power of our human minds to solve any problem or bring us any solutions or clear answers. Taking a moment here to let that settle in. Dropping out of this world that we've been in this whole video, a world of words and conversation. Dropping down into your body. Maybe feeling your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair. Taking a few breaths deep down in your body. Just checking in with yourself how that's landing. Is there any emotion there? Perhaps you're a little bit upset or angry, or you're ready to write me an intense comment about how I'm wrong and how the human mind is more powerful than anything and we can find any solution we need from right here. Maybe there's a little stirring. Maybe there's a little bit of resonance with some of the words I'm saying. Maybe there's a big blowing up and a grand awakening happening in the moment. Not sure I can bring that to you in a YouTube video, but if it's there, let us welcome it in. I'm really taking a moment here. What's alive in you? I was camping the base of one of my favorite mountain ranges, the Swatch Range outside of Leadville in Colorado, and camping in the forest, getting ready for this grand adventure that I went on Saturday. I'm sure that'll be our next YouTube video, is a conversation, some sharings of that specific adventure up the second tallest peak in Colorado in a snowstorm in June, and finding my way all the way to the top, even though each step of the way I thought, there's no way the weather's gonna hold. I'm solo. There's no way I can make enough smart decisions to get to the top of this and actually summit. Oh, but we'll save that story for next time. What I want to bring you here, I'm camping at the base of the mountain the night before, tucked away in my sleeping bag, and I've once again pulled out the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is the text that found its way to me, that really, really formed my path into yoga. It's a text, an ancient text, where, the entire time is very simply a conversation between two individuals, and dealing with what is an impossible decision, dealing with a prince looking out on the battlefield, getting all charged up, being like, yes, let's go to battle. And then looking out and realizing, wait, I can't kill these people. There's people out there that I love and greatly respect. How is it that I make this impossible decision? Do I fight? Do I retreat? Like, how do you make these big decisions when there aren't clear, obvious answers, especially not from where you're standing right here and right now? And it's a text that really opened the doors to this world, this philosophy that really just follows so many different possible, tangible lineages. I bring that up because what I want to invite you to do is find a space that you can be in practice. And I bring you this invitation knowing that each of us is facing so many impossible decisions, often on a day-to-day basis. We live in a world where we're overwhelmed with information, and that information doesn't add up to clear solutions. So when you're standing in a space that's like, the climate is changing and we're putting too much carbon in the atmosphere, but I have to drive my car to there, and I have to eat, and I have to do all these different things. Like, how do I live in the world making the best decisions that I can, knowing that I can't make perfect decisions, knowing that there's no clear answer. Oh, just follow this plan and you will be perfectly participating in us solving the climate crisis. Like, that doesn't exist. It just doesn't. There's too much alive in our own lives, in our world, to be able to make perfect decisions. So what do we do about it? Well, maybe you find your way to a yoga class because you found a specific lineage that really speaks to you, and you're psyched to show up in that class and find a regular practice because you're finding that this space is teaching you these skills. Maybe you show up to my yoga class, my kind of hybrid space for those who, maybe aren't super stoked on a hour-long yoga class every single day, but want to be able to bring some of these practices to have the devoted time to work on these skills. And from there, really focus on bringing that into all aspects of life. Whatever it is, whether I'm your teacher, whether there's a teacher out there, really this invitation to find these spaces, because so many of them exist. There's so many that exist, and there's no right or wrong one. It's all about what resonates with you, what is going to get you to show up, be consistent, get into a regular practice so that we can, as a collective, move out of this world where we're stuck in our heads trying to make idealized decisions when there actually is none that exists. Instead, getting into a practice where we can be embodied and be able to take each step through it all. Yes, certainly calling upon our minds when the time is appropriate, because I promise you there will be plenty of time when the power of the human mind needs to come in to help make those discerning choices. And there is so much more to this path that only gets to unfold as we're in these embodied practices. So with that, I'm going to bring today's video to a close. As always, look for the links in the comments. Go check out the spaces that I have to offer. I have a free 20-minute yoga class. Follow me on Instagram. Over there is where I like to put up a lot of shorter practices, little snippets that can give you a glimpse into this sort of thing I'm talking about, or maybe end up being the simplest of practices that change your life and be the thing that completely transforms you. Of course, make sure you're subscribed here to this channel. I like to mix in deeper practice from time to time. And yes, with that, I look forward to catching you in whatever the next space is that we find ourselves in.